Hey, Algebra 2 students. Today we're going to do 5.2e, so you can fill in your table of contents with the advanced solving of exponential and power functions. Notice that my lovely little misspelling there. Okay, so with that being said, you can go ahead and head down to our 5.2e warm-up, and we will get started. So for our warm-up, you're going to solve for x on these power functions and exponential functions using the strategies that we discussed in our last videos. Round to the 100th, and I will hop back on with the answers for you to check and see how you did. Okay, so for letter A, 625 can be written as a base of 5 with an exponent of 4. So then x equals 4. B, combine like terms. They both have an x squared, so you get 15x squared. And then solve by using t-charts. So we divide by 15, and then we have a power function. So we use the reciprocal of 2, which would be 1/2, and get an approximate answer of 8.25. Same thing with C, divide by 7, and then the reciprocal of a third, or the reciprocal of 3 is a third. So 20 to the 1/3 is 2.71. And then another exponential equation here. Change the bases. So 4 to the power of 2x, and then 4 to the third. So 2x equals 3, and then x equals 3/2. So that is our warm-up. Objectives. We're going to continue working with power and exponential functions. There's nothing new. It's just now taking all of our properties and applying them. And then we'll get to the graph, but probably not today. So our one example today is just a bunch of different problems, okay? And they go on to the next page. So you're just going to solve these problems using all of the properties. So I think we'll do the first page here. So try 1 or A through D. I'll hop on, we'll check those 4, and then we'll go on to the next page and continue that pattern. So go ahead, try A through D, then I'll pop back on and give you the answers and see how you did. Okay, so for letter A, 27 is 3 to the 3rd. Since it's a quotient, we make it a -3. 9 is 3 squared, so that would make that 3 to the 2x. T-chart, solve for x, and get -3/2. For B, first we got to isolate that x, so I got to minus the 6, and then divide by 5, and then I got to reciprocate to get rid of the 1/4, so the reciprocal of 1/4 is 4, so I would do 0.84 to the 4th and get approximately 0.5. For C, this one was a little challenging because we had x's on both sides being multiplied by a number. So the first thing that I would do is I got rid of that -2 on the left by dividing, because remember we're multiplying by 3, so the opposite of multiply is to divide. So then I have x to the 4th, and then x over x to the -2nd. So 4 minus -2 gives me a +6. That's why I moved the -2. And then I just divided by 2 to the other side, so I got 3/2 equals x to the 6th. And then I can reciprocate and get 1.07. And then D, minus that 6 over, and then we have an exponential equation, so that means we got to use same base. So you could change 4 into a base of 2. That would be okay, but I don't know what 2 to the power of whatever is to get 1024. So I figured I would do less numbers and use a base of 4. Thanks to the game 2048 that has all of your powers of 2, just in case you didn't know that. So, the game's actually kind of helpful. And then 4 to the 5th equals 4 to the x, so that means x equals 5. So that is the first 4. Let's go on to our second page, and we will look at, after some mild technical difficulties, I am back. So for these last 6 problems, we'll do it in chunks of 3. So we'll do E, F, and G, and then we'll do H, I, and J second. So go ahead, work on E, F, and G, and then we'll hop back on and see what happens with our answers. All right, so for E, we got to do some T-chart work first. So we got to add that 5 to the other side, giving us 162. Then I got to get rid of that 2 and divide by 2. So that gives me 81. And then exponential equations, we got to use same base. So look to change 81 into a base of 3. And that comes out to be 3 to the 4th. So that means x equals 4. For F, same problem as the one on the other page there. So I moved that x to the negative third. I always move the smaller x. So that would give me x to the 10th. I then divide by 10 to get all my x's by itself. So I get 240 equals x to the 10th and reciprocate. So that gives me 1.73. And then for G, hopefully you didn't miss this parentheses there. They're there for a reason. So I had to use the power property first and distribute that 1/2 n. So that gave me negative 3x to the 1/2 plus 4 to the 1/2 times x to the 1/2 equals negative 1. Then I could figure out what 4 to the power of 1/2 is, and that's 2. And then I can combine like terms. I can divide by a negative 1 and then reciprocate. So that gives me x equals 1. All right. And then let's look at our last 3 here. So last 3, see if you can solve these on your own. I will pause the video, come back on with the answers, and we'll see how you did. All right. So for H, I had 49 and 9. I rewrote them as squares. So 7 squared over 3 squared. And then I took my 3/7 and I flipped it because I recognized that I have a 7 over 3 and a 3 over 7. So if I flip the 7 over 3, then they're both 7 over 3, which means that we had to become a negative 3/2. I then pulled out that 2x, or I pulled out that 2, the square, from both the 7 and the 3. So I got 7 over 3 to the power of 2x. Then my bases were the same, so I dropped them, took negative 3/2 and divided it by 2, and got negative 3/4. For I, this time our base was already isolated, so I could just reciprocate. Please do not distribute that cube n. You cannot do that since they are subtraction there. That only works if you are multiplying or dividing. So I had to reciprocate that, and then I just added 3. And then for J, a couple different ways to solve this one. I didn't recognize right away that 256 was 16 squared, so I went with base 4s instead. So I knew that 4 to the 4th was 256. So I did 4 to the power of 4x over 1 4 squared, brought that out of the fraction, so that made it a negative 2, t-charted, and solved for x equaling negative 1/2. If you recognize that 256 was 16 squared, then you could have done what was in blue there and had 16 to the power of 2x equals 16 to the negative first, dropped the bases, and divided and got negative 1/2. Okay, so that is our notes for today, or at least for this lesson. Go ahead and continue practicing.